Just very quickly to look at what Microsoft Forms is, it's a tool to very easily create surveys or quizzes. We can access it from a web browser or mobile device, which is great. It's super convenient to use on a phone, though some question types don't work the greatest on a phone. And you're able to do real-time results both as a form creator and administrator, but depending on the type of form you use, for example, if you use a quiz, you can actually let people see their results immediately too. So that is a really powerful tool. Uh, why would you want to use Microsoft Forms versus the other tools? It's super easy to use to start. So if you want to create a quick ad hoc data collection, Microsoft Forms is a great tool. One of the nice things about it is it integrates into our O365 environment or our Office 365 environment to not use an acronym. So it's easy to put in other places like Outlook, in Teams, or just send a link to it via chat or email. And the storage is super convenient. It drops all your form results into a spreadsheet in OneDrive. And if you use it to collect attachments, which you can do if you keep it isolated to users within the Weill Cornell community, it will put those attachments in a OneDrive folder. So it really does make all your data collection very easy. So we have three different tools. We probably have more, but just to do a quick differentiation between Forms, Qualtrics, and Poll Everywhere. And I'll touch on a few things that you can do in both of them. So Forms, as I mentioned, ad hoc surveying, basic inquiries, limited question types. There is a quizzing feature, which we'll cover very quickly, Office 365 integration. Poll Everywhere is much more focused on real-time engagement. So if you want to do live interactive sessions, you'll use Poll Everywhere. You'll get audience engagement. You can use it for team building. Poll Everywhere does have a survey feature, which becomes very similar to using Forms and Qualtrics, but that is really not the power you get from Poll Everywhere, so I would suggest against it. Qualtrics is our most robust surveying tool. You want to use it for lengthier questionnaires. You want to use it for complex logic, branching, authentication, notifications, etc. And I do want to highlight, depending on some of the settings you choose with Microsoft Forms, you do get some of those features. So for example, Microsoft Forms can be publicly available. And Vanessa is going to share a couple links in the chat as we go through the demo of publicly available forms. You can also release your forms to members of the Weill Cornell community, which means they have to log into the Office 365 environment before they access the form. So it can have authentication in front of it. There is branching logic in Microsoft Forms. I'm not going to cover it today, but it is something if you are interested in using, you can definitely start to add some branching. So there is a little bit more crossover as Form continues to be developed with Qualtrics. But the goal of today's session is really to just go over some of the simple use cases and different question types so you can see it. And to access Forms in our environment, so the same way you access your Outlook on the web, o365.weillcornell.edu or forms.microsoft.com, and then log in with your Weill Cornell credentials. And with that overview, we're going to jump into a demo. And what I'm going to do, you should be seeing my browser, is to show two forms that I've created before I go into those forms. Just as you can see, if you go into O365, this should look very familiar. If you go to the all applications or you use the ellipsis, you can see your different applications to get to forms. I've already just selected the forms icon. And you can see that I've actually used forms quite a bit. Each one of these tiles represents a form. Most of these are in use for certain things. Some of the differences that you can see right off the bat, some have more branding and designs than others. You can see where they have background images. Some I'm just using a color palette. Some, most of the green ones are my test forms where I haven't done any branding. So what I'll do is I want to start with this Tech Tuesday form demo. And I'm going to go into edit mode and show you some different question types, show some features, and then I'll go into preview mode. And then again, as Vanessa shares the links, you can go in and interact with this form and really see how it works from the end user perspective. So we'll start with the style option. So Forms gives you a couple of different ways to create a design. So one of the more recent additions and aligned with the buzz that I think everyone has seen is it has artificial intelligence to help create some designs. I'm just going to let you know that that's there, but I'm going to ignore it. And what you can do if you come to view all is you can see there's a lot of different themes. The one that I tend to choose is the custom one. I like to go very simple with my themes. So if you do customize theme, and apologies because my scroll bars are in the way. There is a pencil icon that I'm having a bit of a problem seeing at the moment that allows you to edit it. So we'll see if I can resize my browser and make that happen. Okay, well, I will change themes and go back. So you can choose any color. The custom theme that I have here, all I've done for it, there's the pencil icon, apologies, is I've selected two things. I've selected a Weill Cornell color code. So this comes right off our brand.weill.cornell.edu site. And then I've also grabbed one of the images off the brand site as well. And that's what you see as the background image. So that is super simple, the easiest way to do branding. It makes it look very nice, very professional, and aligned with our institution. So what I do want to cover before we go into the question types, if you come to the ellipsis in the right and you go to settings, you have a few different options. And these are really some things that you'll want to take care and look at when you create your forms. Who can fill out the form? So you'll see this form is anyone can respond. So this is publicly available. It's anonymous. I'm not collecting any information such as name because it's not relevant for the demo. But if you were to do an anonymous form and you need that, you would want to collect name and email address. But now you have these other two options, which make this a really cool tool to use, is because you can open it to anyone in the organization. So anyone that can log into our Office 365 environment would be able to access it if you choose the second option. Or if you have something very specific data collection that you want to do from a subset of people, you can choose specific people. And just like OneDrive or SharePoint or any of the other tools that we have where you can select them from the address book. So that is just a really exciting thing. Different options for showing progress bar, what data is included. If you want to time it with a start date, end date, and duration, if you want to say this survey must be completed, today between noon and 1 p.m. You can shuffle the questions. You can show a progress bar if it's long, and it will do pagination. You can customize the thank you message. So you'll notice I did put a quick custom message here so that it looks more embedded in Tech Tuesday. And you can allow for receipt of responses and notifications. So receipt of responses means the submitter will get a response via email. Obviously, it would need to have their email address to do so. And you can also get a notification as the form administrator. So that is very much the general settings. And to close that very quickly, to start going into what does a form look like? You have the form title at the top. And what's really nice about Microsoft Forms is you will get the formatting bar right in each field. So you can see we can add bold, italics, underline, do some font size changes, bullets. You can also use your keyboard shortcuts. So I'm on a Mac. So if I do, Command B, I can make it bold. I can unbold it. There's a description field. So this is just where I noted this is a form, and there's a difference between a form and a quiz. And you'll see that there is a limited subset of question types. So multiple choice, text, rating, date, ranking, Likert. Upload file is grayed out, and that is because this is a public form. If you want to use the upload file feature, you must have authentication to the form. So you must choose either specific users or anyone at our institution. Net Promoter Score section to give us dividers. Again, Microsoft tries to be very helpful and gives you some questions if you want to add them by default. I'm just going to close that out. So what I've done is I've created a form that has each of these question types so you can see them in action. So this is a rating question type. So if I just click in the gray area, you can see that we have the question text. I'm choosing 5 levels of ratings. I'm choosing the star symbol, and there's a few different options. You can choose hearts, thumbs, smiley faces. I thought the generic star was good. You can choose whether it's required or not. And if you click the ellipsis, you can add labels, branching, and subtitles. And again, I'm not going to go into branching, but it is there should you choose to do it. Question 2, this is a Likert question type. So again, the question content is not necessarily important, but this is saying, you know, are you satisfied with today's session? And you can use from very satisfied to very dissatisfied and choose a scale. A true or false question type is nothing more than a multiple choice question type. So again, question text, if you want and you highlight the text, you can do the formatting again, just to reiterate that. You have your options. It'll give you some options if you want to add additional items, or you can use the add option, or it's saying, do you want to add an other option? And just to note in each of the questions as we do it, there is the ability to duplicate the question, delete the question, move it up or down. Again, you can allow for required. And the multiple answers is how many times you want to let someone complete it. So lots of options. In this case, I did not do it. So another multiple choice question that's not deemed true or false, you can see it's going to look very similar. We added a yes, no, and a maybe option just to show a little bit more of what you can do with multiple choice questions. The Net Promoter Score question, it's a cool question type. So if it's something that makes sense, if you want to get some opinions. So I thought, you know, this would be a use case where you might ask someone, how likely are you to? And in this case, it's Recommend Tech Tuesdays. And I hope we would see 10s on the submissions. But it gives you a scale, and very simple to implement. You type your question text, and it creates the scale. You can put the labels for the 2 bounds, and it'll create the question. I thought this was a great question type. Should you need the date option, what's nice about it is it gives the end user a date picker. So when we go into preview mode, you can see that. So again, very similar to how you create a question. You put the text in, it chooses the date. And when we go into preview, or if you're already playing with the forms, you'll see that there's a date picker that shows up. This is a very important question to me. And it is a ranking style question. But you know, this is probably the most controversial question we might have, is rank your Girl Scout cookie flavors in order of preference. And so this is a very easy question to set up, but you just put your question type at the top, you put your options for ranking, and then when we're in the preview mode, you can just drag them up and down. So that is, again, there is not a ton of question types, but enough to really do some fun things. And if we hit preview, this is what you'll see as if you were taking the survey. And again, since this is a public survey, it should look exactly like this if you've already accessed it. So right in alignment with the branding I chose the darker red color for the background. You see the background image. And you see I have some questions as required, some as not required. But if I go in, I'm going to say I do okay. So I'll give myself 3 stars. I'm just going to say I'm neither satisfied or dissatisfied. One thing to note about this Likert style question, if you're on a phone, this table then scrolls off your viewport. So you might actually have to scroll a little bit awkwardly left to right when you're on your phone for this one. Is our Office 365 HIPAA compliant? I'm just going to choose something. I'm going to choose something because this is another multiple choice. I'm going to say I'm likely to recommend Tech Tuesdays because Vanessa and the team are amazing. Just to talk about the date question, just to show you, it does give a nice date picker. So very easy for users. I'm going to choose the wrong date. It doesn't matter in this context. And just to show the ranking question, and I'm going to put Samoas down at the bottom, which I know will be controversial, but I do not care for coconut. So, and I'm going to just immediately do a couple changes here. And we'll see how that goes. And you can see very easy to click and drag, or you can use the arrows. And I'm going to hit submit. And you'll notice that my custom thank you message showed up, and we're all good to go.
Hey, Doug, I have a quick question from somebody regarding the preview mode.
Mhm.
Could you show very quickly where you can also see the mobile view? Somebody's asking if you can see that as well.
Uh, Across the top in preview, we have computer, which is what I was looking at, and here's mobile. And this should actually show the awkward scrolling that I was talking about. Is this table? This is in a table, which is why tables can be bad on websites. So if you're on your actual mobile device, you'll have to use your fingers to scroll left or right. But back at the preview, you do have the option to see it. Thank you for that question. That's a great question that I didn't think to show. And as we come back to the form editing, we'll notice a couple of our colleagues have been in there playing around with me. So you can see the real-time stats is we have 3 responses that have come in. We have approximately a minute to complete. Status is active. Um, if I hit open in Excel, it downloaded a file, and I will just show that file just so you can see what happened. But it took very cleanly and created. You'll notice some of the things I mentioned. It's anonymous because this is a public forum. It has all of the question answers. It has the rankings. So it really does give you the information in a very easy to use Excel file. And you can spend some time. It gives you analytics per question. And so as we scroll down, you can just see the different analytics. So really easy to use this data quickly. And then you can spend more time viewing results if you want to. Excuse me, if I try that again, it will show you the results of each survey. So you can, instead of going into the spreadsheet, you can look at each survey result this way. So you'll see this was the first one that was selected. If I use the right arrow, it was the second one. And you're seeing a little bit of the time to complete change, so you can tell that they're different responses. Again, a really nice option since it's anonymous. And that, at a high level, is how you would create a form. There's a few more features in terms of branching and things like that, but let me stop there for 1 second, and we'll take some questions, and then I will go into quizzes, which are very similar but slightly different. So just give me 1 second to open the chat and see if there is some questions I can try to answer. So what does the labeling of a question do? I don't know. I've never used it, so I'll come back to that after I go over the quizzes, and we'll see what we can do. Can a form be private? Uh, so yes, you don't actually have to share a form. So if you just create it and don't share it with anyone, it's going to be private. But if you only want to share it with 1 or 2 individuals, you have the option to select them. So I do have some forms here that you can see, the 2 with the red block. Those are designed to only be made available to 3 or 4 users. So they're very specific, where I send them to those specified users. They get an email with a link to the form. They complete the form, and then it is private. You can add someone as a collaborator. So that is a great question. I will show that since I'm familiar with that one, so just bear with me. When you come to your settings area, collaborate or duplicate, so you have the option to add, just like you would in OneDrive or SharePoint or the other Office tools in Teams, for example. You can just come and choose additional collaborators, and they will get the ability to edit your survey. So we do use this feature in EdTech, as we have a bunch of people that will help create a form, and that will give us some redundancies. And let me just see if there is any other questions. If someone forwards your form for a link, so the question is, if someone forwards your form link, will it only work if they were granted permission? So that is correct. Depending on the settings you choose, they may or may not be able to do it. So in the case of the links that were shared for today's talk, they're public. So if you forward them, anyone can take the survey. However, if I were to restrict these forms to specific users, then it would require those users to be listed. And the user experience would be very different because the person would click on the link and they would have to log into O365 first. And based on that login, it would determine if they can access the form. Okay, so we're gonna shift gears, talk about quizzes, and then we'll see what a label question does. So we'll give that a shot. So again, I created a form to do a walkthrough. This is gonna look very similar. So this is a quiz demo. You see the title at the top. I have 15 points, so I just made 3 questions with 5 points each. And what I wanted to show is just a little bit of, how to set this up. Everything else really remains the same. So your sharing settings are the same. Your options for a custom message at the end of submission are the same, but it's your question creation that really starts to change. So you'll notice this question is the same. It was a true or false question. The WCM Microsoft O365 environment is HIPAA compliant. And again, it's a choice question type. You'll notice that my options are the same, true or false, but I've selected true as the correct answer, and I've given feedback. It's not terribly original feedback. One says correct, one says incorrect. And we are putting a points value in here. And so when I do the preview and I go through, you'll see why this becomes a really powerful thing to do. Same question as before, can forms be shared with individuals outside? Again, this is going to look very similar. I'm choosing one correct answer and then putting in feedback. And same thing, points required, just like we talked about before. So this one I thought was an interesting one and is one of the challenges when you do open-ended text questions in any online tool, not just Microsoft Forms. So this is a text question type. What is the name of the WCM campaign? So we all know that the current campaign is called We're Changing Medicine. But the challenge with these sorts of open-ended questions is people might type them in different ways. There could be case sensitivity, there could be typos. So I did put 2 versions of a correct answer, one with, I'll say camel case with the first letters capitalized, and one in all lowercase. But if you start using variations, it may or may not accurately capture this one. So this is one that you just have to be careful when you think of quizzes with open-ended text answers. So this was a very short quiz, but I wanted to show some of the more exciting features. So if we come and we say, is it HIPAA compliant? Let's say true this time. I'm going to say no to this one, and you'll see that they're each 5 points. And I'm going to say I don't know the answer to this last question. And you hit submit. And you'll see, similar to the last one, I have a custom thank you message at the end, but I get this really nice view results option. And this is really where the quiz becomes a very nice tool for learning. If you want to do like, did someone learn something from a training or things like that? You can see that I've got a correct answer for the first one, and it did give me the feedback. And it says correct, and that was the text that I had put in. It did note that my answer to question number 2 is incorrect. So again, I had chosen and specified yes as the correct answer, and it gave me the feedback. And then in this case, don't know is a wrong answer, so it tells me what the correct answers could have been. So it tells me right at the top for each question, and then it gives me a total score. So you could use this as a knowledge check or really anything if you wanted to be able to just do a check and give someone real-time feedback. And so that is quizzes in a nutshell. So they're very similar to forms, just with a little bit of added creativity on how you might use them with correct and incorrect answers. And I'm going to go back to try to answer that question about labels. So I'm going to come to the form and we'll choose the first question. There we go. So This is not a terribly exciting way to do, but labels looks like it puts labels for the stars. So I just put 1 star is bad, 5 stars is good. If I come to preview, it put the labels on each side. So a nice handy feature as you're doing these sorts of things. So that was a great question. All right, give me 1 second. I'm going to see if there's any other questions, and then we can open up the floor to any open discussion. So it looks like there is no additional questions that may have come in. So Vanessa, I'm happy to take any more if they might come in.
Sure. I'll give people a minute to put any questions in the chat, but just for everybody who came in a little later, just a reminder that there are links to the forms and quizzes that Doug created in the chat. So feel free to click on those links and test them out just to see how the forms work and things that you could do for perhaps your own use case scenarios. And we are recording the session, so you will get a copy of this at the end of today in a follow-up email with links to the topics that Doug is discussing. Oh, we just got a question from Veronica. Could you go over the results review?
Absolutely. I'm going to go back to the form demo just because that one had 4 responses. So if you come to your edit mode, click on responses, it's going to give you a summary right at the start. And so this is going to tell you how many responses, average time to completion, the status of the survey, whether it's active or it's been saved, archived. For each question on your survey, it's going to give you a summary. So this is just a really nice view of the data. So it tells you the question text, it tells you the average rating, you can see the chart. This one was a Likert question, so you can also see it gives you the question text, and it gives you, sorry, I did not mean to do that, a visual of the data. And going through, because we have different types of questions, so the multiple choice questions give you the pie chart and tell you what was selected. And you can see they are interactive as I hover over. It is showing you what's highlighted on the pie chart. So the net promoter score tells you, promoters, passive detractors, and gives you the score based on the net promoter score scale. In this case, the date question is really a text question, so you'll notice that it gives you the text responses of the date. And this was our ranking, and it looks like caramel chocolate chip has so far been the Girl Scout cookie of choice. And what we can also do in the results view is hit view results, excuse me, and view results will take you into the details of each individual survey. So this is going to be the first survey that was submitted. And you'll notice as we scroll down, it's going to be one unique survey. So the choice of their answer for the rating, the satisfaction scale, the multiple choice true or false type questions, the net promoter score question, and the ranking. And so this person who submitted this one will have to have a bit of a disagreement on the coconut factor. And then if you use the right arrow, you can go to the second, and then subsequent, you can click and go to the third. And one thing I didn't mention, so thank you for talking about the going into the reviews. You can delete a response, you can print a response, but what you can do, and I should have highlighted this earlier, my apologies, is when you're in the summary view, you have a few options. So these are actually surveys that I've used previously to do this sort of demo. So in preparation for today's Tech Tuesday, I did delete all responses. And if you delete all responses, it will come back and reset everything to 0, look like a fresh survey. So what you could do is, if you have specific events where you want to reuse the survey, is roll out the survey, have people take the survey, complete it. You can download the responses if you want to keep them, and then you can reuse the survey by just simply choosing delete all responses. So a few options, and again, just use the open in Excel, and as the response count increases, this spreadsheet will also update. So you just hit it, open in Excel again, and this time it would show all 6 results. So I'm happy to take any more questions.
It looks like you answered all the questions, Doug. And if anybody else has any, like, feel free to put them in the chat, or if you have a specific use case scenario that you'd like to discuss, you can raise your hand and we can take you off the mic. But if there are no further questions, we can wrap up the session. Or if you think of something after the session, feel free to respond to the email that goes out with the follow-up details, and we can certainly help you with any questions you might have. Oh, from Maria, can we use forms to create registration links?
Sure. It would really depend on what kind of registration data you need. So if you're collecting, just name, email address, and things like that, this would be a great use case. If you were trying to, so for meetings, for example, yeah, absolutely. If you wanted to do that, you'd want to decide, does it make sense to use forms for registration versus maybe Zoom, right? Because Zoom has a registration option and you might be using Zoom for the meeting. But yes, you could absolutely create a form to collect that sort of information. Again, it would put it in a nice spreadsheet for you, and that would be stored in OneDrive. So if it was something you want to track and that was an easy way to collect it, absolutely. So again, I use it as the question in the quiz, but because it is in our Office 365 environment, you are able to put the same types of data in it as you would the other solutions in the O365 environment. So you really are able to collect and store, potentially confidential data in the system as well.
Doug, out of curiosity, do you know if the collaboration feature is similar to the other Office 365 applications wherein you can share with people at, the Ithaca campus, for example?
I have never attempted to share with someone externally. Let's find out. Happy to break things. So, little known fact about me is I am an adjunct at another institution. And so let me see if I can. Well, actually, this looks like it addresses anyone with Office 365 work or school account. So I'm going to choose that. Actually, I'm not going to choose that. Let's see if I can. People with medical. So it looks like that's going to be too broad. We don't want anyone in the world to be able to do this. So then people with Med Cornell would be restricted, and specific people with Med Cornell. So it looks like it's a little more restrictive, but I would have to test that. I was thinking there might be an option to say anyone outside, and then I was going to put in my other email address, but that doesn't seem to be the case.
Got it. Okay. Good to know.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's there.
It looks like we've gotten to all the questions. So I'm going to wrap up the session today. Thank you all so much for joining us. And thank you, Doug, for showing us a couple of examples of how we could use Microsoft Forms. Again, I'll be in touch later today with a follow-up email. And if you do end up having some questions that you thought of after this, feel free just to respond and we'll do our best to help you out. Thank you all and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.